So, hey there, this is Brent Smith, and I'm the Common Constitutionalist, and this is the Common Constitutionalist audio version of the Weekend Podcast. And today we'll be discussing an article from ThinkProgress, yes, our lefty progressive friends at ThinkProgress, and they recently wrote an article about the Democratic Socialist freshman congressman, or congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and her view on the Congressional, say, freshman orientation, the bipartisan event, as she called it. So that's what we'll be discussing today on the Common Constitutionalist Weekend Audio Podcast.
You are listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
Okay, I am back, and like I said in the opening or the intro, this is from our progressive leftist friends at ThinkProgress, and they write, "Money playing a major role in politics is obviously not a ThinkProgress exclusive. But amid all the corruption and conflicts of interest that make headlines, there are countless other influences of money in the political world that don't make themselves known unless you're on the inside. Yes, indeedy." So notice the setup right off of the bat from ThinkProgress. This dog whistle is always the same, that money is inherently evil and it's only used for evil intent. Well, okay, let me expand on that a little bit. Private sector money is inherently evil, but in the hands of the government, and particularly Democrats in government, is the only time we can trust money. Now, I don't deny for a second, and anybody with half a brain can't deny, that there's far too much influence peddling going on in Washington. Hell, there's the whole street used just for that purpose, built for that purpose, K Street, where all the lobbyists influence peddlers are. But the peddlers wouldn't have any influence without our political class accepting their largesse, now would we? Because politics long ago, frankly, it's just ceased to be a public service. Now it's just big business. Frankly, it's the biggest business, to be honest. when you get right down, boil it right down, government is the biggest business. And it's so funny to hear these leftists say that they hate big business and evil corporations and profits, but yet they love the world's biggest business, the world's largest evil corporation, our federal government. It's a gee whiz. So they complain about corporations spreading, and I love this one. They always complain about corporations spreading millions and even billions of dollars around all, to all their friends and cronies, which they do. When you think about it, several $billion would barely even amount to an accounting error in the government's budget of like $4 trillion. The average governmental department or agency loses or wastes far more than that every freaking year. It's ridiculous. And then on the government, the politician or political side, we've seen it throughout history, at least on our side of the aisle. We've seen what appear to be perfectly normal and seemingly honest people. They get elected, and within a decade or less, frankly, nowadays it's within a couple of years, they're utterly corrupted by the D.C. cesspool. Now, I'm not blaming the cesspool entirely, obviously, but I've said this before. D.C. is so corrupt that they could turn Jesus Christ. I mean, it's just that bad in Washington. And you could equate this roughly to the drug trade in America. You take away the demand and the supply dries up. If you take away the politicians wanting to line their pockets and get their pet projects through kickbacks and lobbyist money and everything else, you take away that demand, and there wouldn't be any need for K Street. There wouldn't be any need for lobbyists and influence peddlers. And when you look back in even just our recent history, there's a laundry list of politicians who went in as like wide-eyed patriotic Americans. They're just looking to serve. That's all I want to do is do public service, right? Look at how John McCain ended up. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but it is what it is. John McCain started as a Reagan revolutionary, and then look how he ended up. And look at even some of the hardest core Democrats then and now. I mean, Al Gore, when he was a congressman, before he became senator and vice president and then leader of the global warming movement, this dude was pro-life. I mean, adamantly pro-life. Listen to Harry Reid. Go on YouTube and you can watch Harry Reid famously railing against illegal immigration. I mean, and the list of these corrupted individuals is absolutely endless just in the past 35, 40 years. But that's only, frankly, that only used to be how it went. Now, frankly, many, if not most of our political class has already been corrupted to some extent, even before they get to D.C. We'll just call it by means of the local and state minor league farm team system, where they come up through the local politics, they get corrupted to some extent, then they get to state politics and they get corrupted even more, and then they get sent up to the major leagues of corruption, and that's where just all the floodgates open. And our political system was originally set up to attract the best among us, citizen legislators, going obviously all the way back to the founding. You feel compelled to serve, you serve for a few years, and then you go home and you resume your private life. Now it's obviously a freaking career where riches and absolute power await those who accept the corrupt influence, and it seems like almost all of them do if they stay there long enough. They play the game, and if you play the game, you become like a made man or like a made woman in the mob type of thing. And then you have a job for life, either as a corrupt politician until you die off or you decide to retire or whatnot, and then you become a corrupt corporate lobbyist. That's what happens. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back to continue this crony corporatism corruption stuff. Be right back.
You're listening to The Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
All right, I am back. And we're going to get right back to the ThinkProgress article. And they write, Representatives-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat of New York, and Rashida Tlaib, I don't know, Tlaib, Talib, I don't frickin' know, nor do I care. Democrat of Michigan, who ran as outsider candidates, are now on the inside and making it clear that it won't be business as usual in the new Congress. Oh, I'm sure they're shaking in their boots. So during the ongoing orientation events for newly elected members before they're seated on January 3rd, Thursday featured the Harvard Bipartisanship Forum that was apparently billed as a bipartisanship event. Ocasio-Cortez, the youngest woman ever elected to Congress, don't you know, voiced her displeasure via Twitter. Ocasio-Cortez tweets, "Right now, freshman members of Congress are at a bipartisan orientation with briefings on issues. Invited panelists offer insights to inform new Congress members' views as they prepare to legislate. Number of corporate CEOs we've listened to here, 4. Number of labor leaders, 0. End of tweet. Tweet. Around 15 minutes later, ThinkProgress writes, Talib, I don't know what the crap her name is, who will join Representative-elect Ilhan Omar, also Democrat of Minnesota, as the first Muslim congresswoman next month. And that, boy, we're going to herald that event. Yeah, buddy. They noted that Gary Cohn, President Donald Trump's former chief economic advisor, was also in attendance with a warning to the new arrivals in Washington, D.C. Talib's tweet, Gary Cohen, which she spelled incorrectly, but former CEO Goldman Sachs arrested, addressing new members of Congress today. Quote, "You guys are way over your head. You don't know how the game is played," unquote. And then she tweets, "No, Gary, You don't know what's coming. A revolutionary Congress that puts people over profits. Wowzer. Okay, so I never I never thought I would even think this, much less say it aloud, but Alexandria has a point. One single point. And I'm going to go ahead and step all the way out on that ledge and declare that this will be the last time I say or think that Cortez has a point. A good point, that is. So I'm putting aside, for at least for now, Talib comments about revolutionary Congress. Could that have been a more Marxist statement? But what do you expect? The first instinct is to laugh, just to laugh it off as blather from a dope. But it's scary in that the movement toward Marxism is slowly but steadily growing. And at some point, we're going to have to stop laughing at these people and start combating their ideology, because it is a growing movement, whether we want to admit it or not. It's ridiculous, but it's growing. And so let's do this people before profits thing. Really? It's a great bumper sticker. I'm going to put people before profits. What a great soundbite. But maybe unbeknownst to Talib, and Cortez or whatever, businesses pay taxes on their gross profits. Where do you think the freaking the tax money comes from? If businesses didn't make a profit, you wouldn't have that tax money to redistribute to your people. It just, when they say stuff like this or they tweet it out or whatnot, it just reminds me how monumentally vacuous these socialists are. But to her correct point, her one correct point. I mean, corporate CEOs and lobbyists running the Congressional freshman orientation. What a load of crap that is, man. Of course, I want the number of labor leaders 0 to remain 0 too. But what exactly is this orientation supposed to be teaching these new members? I don't know. You would think an orientation would be like any other school orientation, college orientation, job orientation. You would think it's where to find stuff and find your way around, who you go to see, to whatever questions you have, how to fill out essential paperwork, how the computer systems work, and all that other stuff that's actually essential, instead of this is how you play the game in Washington. I suppose it is essential in Washington, but it sure as hell shouldn't be. And so there shouldn't be any advocates for any side, our side, their side, any side, during a freaking freshman orientation. So we're going to take another quick break, and I'll be right back.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
Okay, I am back for the, I think, final segment. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's the final segment. But this freshman orientation thing, I guess this is where the government is set apart from every other freshman orientation, every other new incoming employee or whatever orientation. This is the way the government works. So I guess it's kind of, it's so sad. I guess what they really think is important is how to play the game in the swamp. That's the most important thing to these Nimrods. It's just so sad. Now, I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't really know what was said for sure, but so I just have to kind of assume that she quoted Cohn right or accurately, and I haven't heard otherwise, so I assume it's correct. And if it was accurate, for Cohn to stand up there and arrogantly declare to these new members that you don't know how the game is played and that you're in over your head when you're just walking in the door, I mean, give me a freaking break. Come on. I mean, what an arrogant blank hole. But it's frankly, it says a lot. It's extremely telling. And what it says? Well, what it says is that crony corporatism is alive and well in D.C. It ain't going anywhere. And it says, despite what these socialist freshmen think, the insider cesspool that is Washington will continue to do business as usual, whether they like it or not. And if frankly, if the 40 or so really intelligent members of the House Freedom Caucus couldn't affect any real change, and they really kind of couldn't, a few more dopey socialists aren't going to get it done either. And frankly, in this particular case, thank heavens for that. And if you look at the Progressive Caucus members, and there's certainly more than I thought there were, a lot of them are a bunch of freaking sellouts. A lot of them are a bunch of rich sellouts in the caucus anyway. I mean, you look at the fraudster, Bernie Sanders, Senator Bernie Sanders. He's part of the Progressive Caucus. Of course, he's not part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, but he's a member of the Progressive Caucus. What's he own, like 3 or 4 houses? I mean, really? That's a progressive? Oh, yeah, okay, that's a socialist? No, I don't think so. And look at somebody like Sheila Jackson Lee. I mean, could be the dumbest person in Congress. I don't know, man. There's a lot of people vying for that moniker. But her net worth is like well north of $3.5 million. And if you look down on some of these members, a lot of them are multimillionaires. So, Progressive Caucus, give me a freaking break. And within a few years, if Ocasio-Cortez can hold on and stay there for long enough, she's going to become a multimillionaire sellout too. I mean, she's got all these pie-in-the-sky ideas. And the minute the socialists, people start waving money in front of them, then there's goodbye socialism, hello communism, where the Communist Party leaders are fabulously wealthy, and then they spread the misery around everybody else. That's the way it works, folks. Okay, back to the article, back to the progressive leftist ThinkProgress article. In addition to Representative-elect Ayanna Pressley, Democrat of Massachusetts, who's also a socialist, who also expressed concerns about the forum earlier this week, Cortez later added that they were apparently additional members of the new Congress who were uncomfortable about the orientation event being co-hosted by a corporate lobbyist group. Lobbyists are here. Goldman Sachs is here. Where's labor? Activists. Frontline community leaders. Yes, that's what we need. We need a bunch of community agitators teaching the latest iteration of Cloward and Piven, or a bunch of Alinskyeites. Frankly, they're probably already ahead of the curve on that anyway. So what would these people speak about? How the Congress can better serve illegal aliens, or how to craft a new welfare program, Medicare for all? I don't know. I guess that's what they'd speak about. So the article resumes. Goldman Sachs, the financial behemoth where Cohn was CEO before joining Trump's administration, now listen to this, made a little over $4.3 million in donations during the 2018 election cycle, according to Open Secrets. Unfortunately, what ThinkProgress neglected to mention, and of course not purposely, is that the $4.3 million was evenly split between Republicans and Democrats, 48% to the GOP, 48% to the Dems, and then some PAC contributions. And if you read no further than that, and this is the point, this is the trick for these leftist websites, is they will put all the meat, all the truth toward the bottom, because they know people only read the first few paragraphs and then they're done and they're out. Because later on they do explain that it wasn't even split, but you have to look well beyond. There's a big graph and everything, and it would confuse a bunch of leftists anyway, so their heads would spin and pop off, and then they'd click off the thing and just assume that all $4.3 million was given to Republicans. But as luck would have it, I have the political contributions of Goldman Sachs from 1990 all the way to today, to present year. From 1990 to 2006, Goldman Sachs donated more to Democrats than Republicans. From 1990 to 2006, Goldman Sachs donated more to Democrats than Republicans. In many years, if you look at all the totals and all the tallies between the Dems and the Republicans, a lot of the times the Dems were leading by a 2-to-1 margin, and in 2008, they gave nearly 3 times as much to the Dems. And gee, I wonder why. That's right, they got sucked in like everybody else into the whole first black president transformative crapola. Matter of fact, they gave more to the Dems in 2008 than their whole total donation amount for 2018 by about $500,000. Then a funny thing happened. Within 2 years, Goldman Sachs and probably a bunch of other ones figured out what transformative really meant. And I guess they didn't listen to Barack and his wife tell us before they were elected what they intended to do, because if you listen, they told you. And Wall Street, unfortunately, was going to be a target of their distributive economy. So by 2010, Goldman wised up and started giving more money to Republicans than Democrats, and it just evened out this year for the first time. So in closing, I agree with Ocasio-Cortez and her cohorts of Democrat socialists that orientation should just be an orientation. This is where you go, this is what you do, this is how you do things. If you have questions, these are people to ask, and so on and so forth. Walk you through all the processes, and then go legislate. Go do what you were elected to do. Don't get a bunch of freaking corporate cronies in there telling you how to play the game, or a bunch of labor leaders or community agitators telling you how to, develop the next welfare program, or how to let more illegals, immigrants in, and how to get them to vote next time around, or some crap. But beyond that, like I said, this should be more than likely the first time I ever agree with Ocasio-Cortez, and more than likely the last. So that's about all I've got. My name is Brent Smith. I am the Common Constitutionalist. Thank you for listening to the Common Constitutionalist weekly broadcast. And God willing and the creek don't rise. Of course, the creek's frozen up here, so it ain't going to be rising anytime soon, dadgummit. It's cold as crap out there. Which is one of the reasons why I'm indoors doing an audio podcast, because it's cold as crap out there. So that's all I've got. Again, thank you for listening. See ya.